We hear a lot of talk about the importance of mindset, but how do you actually do it? Well, today we're going to get into detail. Stay tuned. This episode of Keeping It Real is brought to you by Real Geeks. How many homes are you going to sell this year? Do you have the right tools? Is your website turning soft leads into interested buyers? Are you spending money on leads that aren't converting? Well, Real Geeks is your solution. Find out why agents across the country choose Real Geeks as their technology partner. Real Geeks was created by an agent for agents. They pride themselves on delivering a sales and marketing solution so that you can easily generate more business. Their agent websites are fast and built for lead conversion with a smooth search experience for your visitors. Real Geeks also includes an easy-to-use agent CRM. So once a lead signs up on your website, you can track their interest and have great follow-up conversations. Real Geeks is loaded with a ton of marketing tools to nurture your leads and increase brand awareness. Visit realgeeks.com/keepingitrealpod and find out why realtors come to Real Geeks to generate more business. Again, visit realgeeks.com/keepingitrealpod. And now, on to our show. Today's episode is brought to you by Corded.io. Are you looking for agents to join your brokerage or team? Now, as a real estate recruiter, I can tell you the answer is always yes. But most agents aren't looking to move right now. So how do you know who to contact? Well, what if I were to tell you there's a recruiting and retention tool powered by artificial intelligence that shows you exactly which agents in your local market are looking to leave their brokerage right now and which agents at your own firm are also looking to leave you? Now, I've been recruiting realtors for 15 years and I've hired over 2,000 agents. I can tell you with no exaggeration, this is the tool I've been waiting for. Corded's AI looks for trends across dozens of variables for each agent in your market and shows you which agents they believe are likely to move. Not only does it do that, but Corded's AI went and visited my recruiting website and read everything I offer. So now when I'm recruiting, Corded's AI tells me exactly what to say based on that agent's needs and what my brokerage can offer. It even writes emails for me. I've never seen anything like it, and I use it every single day. Now, if you are looking to grow your brokerage, Corded.io is the best tool out there. Visit Corded.io to schedule a demo. Again, that's Corded.io. And now, onto the show. Welcome to another episode of Keeping It Real, the largest podcast made by real estate agents and for real estate agents. My name is DJ Paris. I'm your guide and host through the show. And in just a moment, we're going to be speaking to an ex-professional skier turned top 1% luxury realtor, Athena Brownson. Before we get to Athena, just a quick reminder, the best way you can help our show grow, well, there's a couple things you can do. First, check out our sponsors. We hand select them with only the best, finest products and services for your real estate business, as well as telling a friend about this show. As you're listening to this episode, think about another agent that could benefit specifically around mindset. Send them a link. We appreciate it. You can find all of our episodes on our website, keepingitrealpod.com. And then, of course, subscribe wherever you're listening to this podcast. And last thing you can do is leave us a review. Let us know what you think of the show. It helps us get in front of more people and also helps us know what we can do to meet your needs better. All right, guys, let's get right to it. My conversation with Athena Brownson. Today on the show, we have Athena Brownson with Compass in Denver Metro, Colorado. Let me tell you more about Athena. Now, Athena Brownson is a top Denver realtor, celebrated for her expertise in luxury properties and dedication to creating healthy, balanced spaces for her clients. A Colorado native and former competitive skier, her deep connection to the state provides her with a unique understanding of its lifestyle, making her a trusted partner for clients, including Denver Nuggets players who seek more than just a beautiful home. Now, after being diagnosed with chronic Lyme disease, Athena came to deeply value safe, restorative environments, which now shape her approach to real estate. Her resilience, local insight, and commitment to designing true sanctuaries have earned her a standout reputation in Colorado's high-end market, making her the go-to choice for clients wanting a home that enhances their well-being. I want everybody to follow Athena on Instagram. She is at Athena Brownson Realtor, and we'll have a link to that in the show notes. And we'll also have a link to her website. And Athena, so excited to have you.
DJ, could not be more excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me on this lovely Monday morning. I
I
know
am
it's been a crazy one for you, so I'm just
well
excited.
behind the scenes restreams started glitching right when our time was starting, and I was running a minute late. And so Athena has been incredibly kind and sweet, and really speaks to her character. She's like so excited. She didn't care that we're starting late. She's just excited to be here, and we're excited to have her, and I'm excited to talk to you. And I want to say something right off the bat, which I was saying to you backstage, but I want to say it in front of everyone here, is that thank you for talking about your illness that you are constantly being challenged with, because of course all of us have challenges in our life. Some of them are illnesses, others are, all sorts of issues,
Everything.
but we often don't talk about them because we keep them at private, or we're just too, we don't want to talk about it, or we're afraid, or we're embarrassed, or whatever it may be. And I love the fact that you brought that up front and center, and it really, I hope some of our
Yeah,
other listeners who might be struggling with physical ailments can relate to what you're going through, and
yeah.
also the resilience that you've built as a result of
Thank
having
you.
those kind of challenges in your life. So I love the fact, I hate the fact that you have this illness.
Me too.
I love the fact that you are so resilient as a result of it.
Thank you.
So yeah.
No, I always say I'm the luckiest sick person alive, and I'm also an open book. Like I'm a firm believer that if you look back at your life, the greatest moments of growth occur when you're being challenged the most.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
challenge doesn't have to be chronic illness. It can be divorce. It can be a tough market. It can be, family issues. Like all of our issues are relevant. For me, unfortunately, it's been waking up in excruciating pain for 9 years, but it's taught me so much more about who I like, the depths of who I am and what I stand for, that I don't know that I ever would have learned had I not gotten sick. So
Yeah.
challenge brings growth.
It's funny. I always said, if there is a God, and if I get to
Mhm.
meet God, if there is one, then the first thing first I'm going to say, couldn't you have just given me 5 more IQ points? I just needed 5 more IQ points. But second, no, the second thing I would say is, why did you have to make everything so worthwhile? The things that are so worthwhile so hard,
So hard.
and God would probably say, well, that's how it's supposed to be.
Yeah. Because
And
you wouldn't have learned to be the man
yeah,
that you are without those experiences.
100%.
You're
And
like, are you sure?
yeah, yeah, you couldn't have done it a different way. Okay, fine. But it is something to, it's like The Obstacle is the Way, that book by Ryan Holiday. I always go back to that during times
So
of
good.
really challenges. The obstacle is the way,
Yeah.
even though it's the least fun thing. But lots of things in life are unfun that are really fulfilling. In fact, most everything. So
Yeah.
but
Honestly.
again, I applaud your resilience. I applaud your energy and your vibe. You certainly seem to be somebody who really appreciates the good that you do have. And so let's talk about that. You grew up in Breckenridge, so let's talk about what that life was like.
Yes, so you definitely do not come across very many Denver native or Breckenridge natives, let alone Colorado natives. Our state is, we have over 5,000 people a month moving here. So to be able to say I'm from Breckenridge is, I had 300 people in my graduating class, and that was from 4 towns. So it all collected. But as I'm sure you could imagine, I grew up on snow. So I believe my dad always says he'd probably be arrested for child abuse at this point, because when I was 3 weeks old, he'd strap me to his chest and take me downhill skiing. I
Well,
don't think you could get away with that anymore.
your dad was a professional skier. Tell us, what was it
He
like
was.
to grow up on the slopes, but also having a father who this was his livelihood, his life. What was that like?
It was something that I don't know that I took as I think I took it for granted a little bit, just being so young. But the first, 8 years of my life were following him to ski races all over the world. He was a professional speed skier. So that basically means you get clocked going as fast as you can down the mountain for miles per hour. So his record was like 127 miles an hour on skis.
Wow.
Yeah, so I grew up in that environment. So it really, without knowing it, of course, I was immediately put in with, with some of the top coaches in the world because I'm in
Sure.
Breckenridge, Colorado.
Yeah.
I've got this father who is a complete maniac in the best way,
Yeah.
who really taught me what the value of hard work is because I mean, he is now 74. He's a car racer. He's beating 20-year-olds in Le Mans all over the world. And he works out 3 times a day to keep in shape for that
Yeah.
while running successful businesses.
Isn't it crazy that people who drive cars, there's a physicality to it that
Oh my
people
God.
we don't realize. And somebody who's a downhill a skier has to just grind and practice, and it's like milliseconds they're
Yeah,
constantly shaving off. And
exactly.
it's just this your dad's a competitor, so you have that gene probably as well. So
Definitely.
when did you start competing?
Yeah, so like I said, I was on skis when I learned how to walk. So at 2 years old, I got my first pair of skis. From about, baby age until about 13, I was in a racing program. So I skied downhill. And I really think that gave me the foundational tools and, again, access to some of the most hardcore coaches I've ever met. And that is honestly the best business school I ever could have asked for was becoming an athlete. And that is because they taught me the the value of hard work, of
Yeah.
showing up when you say you're going to, of accountability, of vulnerability, because they were the people that I was spending 6 days a week with at least. I eventually, at age 15, switched over to freestyle. We call it kind of switching to the dark side, but there's no dark side. But that just meant that I was skiing slope style and half pipe. So all those crazy people that you see in X Games throwing
Sure.
themselves off jumps and in the half pipe, that was my sport.
It
Uh,
must have been fun to add in creativity to
oh,
that. So all of a sudden now you are the choreographer of your own sport, which a lot of athletes don't get to do, right? So that is something that you get to marry this super physical thing with a super creative thing, and then
that's what
compete.
I love. Exactly. That's like my perfect, if you could describe what I love in life, and I think that's why I love real estate, you just encapsulated it. Community, competitiveness, being able to be creative, and really what it taught me is the power of visualization.
Oh, let's
Because
talk about that. Yeah,
when
tell
you're
me.
skiing, there are not many places or opportunities to try tricks out other
Yeah.
than on the snow. So from a pretty young age, I remember I was probably about 15 or 16 years old in one of my, I think it was the US Open. It was one of my first big contests. And my coach, I basically needed to try a trick that I had never done before, but I knew that if I didn't pull this, I was not going to make it to the next grouping. And it was actually me versus my mentor in that grouping. So
Oh my gosh,
it
that's like
was,
straight out of
yeah,
a movie. Yeah.
Sarah Burke, who pretty much is the anyone that knows women's freestyle or freestyle skiing, she invented it. I mean, she was the best mentor, but it was me versus her. And I was just, and my coach calmed me down. He said, Athena, you remember these hours that you have spent visualizing yourself landing tricks? Now is the time. Sit at the top of the course, take yourself through the course in your head, visualize yourself landing every trick. And if you can't visualize yourself landing, then you need to not stop working on that until you do, because the brain is a muscle. So
Yeah.
what I was doing was creating it's basically neuroplasticity
Yep.
that I'm creating neural pathways to convince my brain that I know how to do this movement.
Yeah.
And even though I physically haven't done it yet, in my mind I have. So I realized from a very young age the power of visualization. And I believe that that is a pillar in my life and all of our lives as professionals and entrepreneurs today, is we're always setting goals, we're looking ahead, we're looking at the future, we're visualizing where we want to be. But if we can get really concrete on those details of what that win looks like, what does landing that trick look like to you? Is it, approaching an entirely different demographic in your market by door knocking or introducing yourself, hosting events? Like, what are the concrete steps and action plan that you're going to be able to take to get to where you want to go? And you
Yeah.
know what? I stomped that landing. It was my first 1080 in a competition, actually on snow, period.
That's
And
insane.
I made it to finals in my first year. So the power of visualization is something that even someone that has been, a supporter and believer in it my entire life, it easily goes away when real estate and life kind of cave in.
Sure.
And you
We
forget to
live
look
in
forward.
right. We live in a very physical world that we can see, touch, and hear, and we don't always remember to go in and rehearse. Right.
Exactly.
There's external rehearsal, which is great, and then there's internal rehearsal, which every athlete that I've ever spoken to is a big fan of.
Yeah.
And it's something that I even have just now started realizing that on what I do, and I'm curious to get I want to hear how you do it.
Yeah.
But when I drive to work now, I used to listen to podcasts or music,
Mhm.
and I only have a 10-minute drive. It's very quick, but I said,
Lucky.
you know what? I'm not going to do that going forward because I could spend that 10 minutes just thinking about what do I want to accomplish today, but not even just with the to dos. Who
Yeah.
do I want to be today? What skills
Oh, I
do
love
I want to embody? What if I become 1% more effective at X? What if I
Atomic
just
habits.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And
Mhm.
so just this idea of really thinking act and then acting as if in my head, like I'm imagining I can land that sale or I can,
Yeah.
do X, Y, or Z and just pretending that
Mhm.
that it's possible and seeing what that might feel like. And it's interesting because at the very least, if nothing else, it primes me for when I get to work and I'm like, okay, now I know at least what I need to do today. How
Exactly.
tell me how you do visualization.
Yeah. So, and I incorporated it into my life and business in so many different ways. And like I said, it is one of those things that, as realtors, I think we're constantly inundated with shiny objects and things to do. And there's not enough hours in the day. So you have to be very intentional about how you're spending your time. And for me, I have to be very intentional about how I'm using my mind, because it is really, our minds are such an incredible valuable tool that we have to use at our disposal to create what it is we want. So I honestly, a lot of my I do a lot of work with introspection, whether that's through meditation, breath work,
Yeah.
you name it, I've tried it, or I'm a supporter of it probably. But I love to write out in at least once a month who my ideal client is, what my ideal transaction looks like from start to finish. I want a detailed story about exactly how an interaction, the first interaction I make with this new client, to, well past the closing table, sitting at their new dinner table, reminiscing on our house hunt. So I do that at least once a month, where I'm really checking in with myself, because I think when we start real estate, I've been in the business about 10 years now, and when you start real estate, and even over the last couple of years, we're more in a space of yes, 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 because that's what you have to do to build your business.
Yeah.
We're constantly hustling, you're saying yes to everything, spreading yourself very thin. Now, that is the world of real estate, but at a certain point you have to learn what your boundaries are, who you have to be intentional with, how you're spending your time, who you're connecting with. Are you showing up authentically? I always say real estate is not rocket science, it's reps. So you need to make sure that you are out there getting those reps, but at a certain point, there has to be the boundaries that you create to say no, because otherwise you're never going to learn how to take care of yourself. You won't
Yeah.
take care of the clients you do have, and you don't have that time to really reflect and be intentional about, okay, what does my ideal business look like? And now that I have that written out in the present tense, like it's happening, I
Yep.
fully believe you have to put your brain in that mode. Then what are the action steps that I need to take to get there?
Yeah. You just work backwards.
Exactly. And that can be really difficult to do when we're busy. But I definitely, like, for my team, we do an exercise quarterly that is really based around how our lives are balanced. And I don't believe in balance, honestly. I think that's a little
But
bit
we
of
but we
overgeneralization.
try. We try to get as
Yeah,
close as we can. Yeah.
exactly. So every quarter do the same exercise just so that we can look back over the years and reflect. But we look at our two biggest struggles in the 7 pillars of life, which is something a coach taught me. And it's self, family, friends, money, work, spirituality, and self-care. No, I already said self. I'm missing one. But you basically write your two biggest struggles in each area, and then from that you're going to flip it over and write two small actionable goals based on each of those struggles. And what you're doing is creating a visual blueprint for yourself for what to focus on and something that you can come back to. These are not supposed to be huge New Year's resolutions where your entire life is supposed to change, but like you said, how can I show up 1% better every day
Yeah.
and follow in, look at where I'm not as strong in my business, in my life, and focus on those items. Because if we're not taking care of ourselves, I mean, I'm the first to admit, I'm battling multiple chronic illnesses. My body will completely stop working if I do not take care of myself.
Yeah.
And even sometimes when I do, I
Yeah.
mean, there will be days where my joints are swollen shut. I can't walk. I can't move. I probably have a migraine so bad I can't see. So how am I preparing even for those
Right,
for
because
those
that
days?
is that's the real. So it's like, what is so this idea of not of also not resisting what is, like,
Yes.
what we don't have to like the reality, but we have to accept that it's real,
Yeah.
right? So in your case, it's, hey, I have these illnesses and
Mhm.
they're not fun, and I wish I didn't have them, but I do, and they're going to get in the way of my work because I don't know when they're going to hit.
Yeah.
And even if I take perfect care of myself, they seem to show up sometimes.
Yeah.
So this idea of the Boy Scout motto, always be prepared, is
Yes.
I'm sure you have plans. When this happens, this is the best thing I know to do. And then you'll test. Did
Yeah.
it work? Did it help me? Did it not? And I suspect you are constantly looking for solutions as well.
Oh my goodness. Yes. So I have a couple. You have such amazing questions. First of all, thank you. And insight. One of my coaches taught me from a very early time, probably before I got sick, was the value of bringing consistency to your schedule so that you know exactly what needs to get done in a week, and you can time block. But then if I have a day that I'm not able to do what that is, I can move some of those most important green times to a different day.
Yeah.
But what it really, I give 100% of the fact that I am here doing what I love to do, which I truly, I will be that corny realtor for life that is saying how much I love real estate. I love real estate. So the
Yeah.
fact that I get to have a career that allows me the opportunity to, the competitor in me had always wanted to push through the really bad days. And that was one of the biggest struggles, is learning that that is not helping me.
Right.
There are instances where I'm not going to feel good a lot of times, but I need to show up as my best. But there are times where I need to say, hey, you know what? The reason I have such incredible teammates, the reason I've curated this small but mighty group of humans around me is so that I can take care of myself when I
Yeah.
need to. And I think culture and community are really the two of the biggest pillars of of my business. I've worked with, you know, I have 3 people on my team that I've worked with for, 3, 10, and 8 years, and they have my back more than anyone ever could. And I know that I can trust them with my clients. And I think that trust is built through authenticity. So at the beginning, when you say, thank you for sharing with your illness, it's, this is a part of my daily life. And it's something that all my clients need to know about. And they need to know that this is not going to affect their ability to have the most successful transaction. I will be present if I have a day where I do 4 plasma transfusions a month, for instance. That is 4 days in the hospital, literally getting all the blood taken out of my body, go through a centrifuge, take my plasma out, and replace it with bottled synthetic plasma. So
It's like dialysis for a healthy person. For somebody
exactly.
that's an athlete that, typically if we're, and I don't mean to
No,
put a
yeah.
judgment on anyone who's in dialysis was like,
Oh,
that's
totally.
awful. But a lot of that, if people lived healthier lives, that might actually prevent some of that. You're in a situation where you have to do it no matter what.
Yeah. Hopefully not forever. But having that support system, but also having structure. And I think that's really what the last year and a half have taught me in particular is I want to do it all. I was a one-man sport skier. I'm an only child. The art of delegation is something that has not
Tough.
come naturally to me.
Yeah.
And as a leader, I believe that one of the greatest skills you need to have is to be able to delegate effectively, kindly, and in a way that you are providing value. And honestly, that is how I got my start in real estate. Is I found I never in a million years would have expected myself to be in real estate, but after my 9th ACL surgery, my doctor looked at me and he's like, Athena, you're going to need a knee replacement way before you're 30 if you keep this up. This was long before I was 30. It's been a while. But I looked at him and it was just time. It was time to hang up the skis. So I did that. I worked with an incredible interior design firm, but I was bored out of my mind. I realized that with that skiing background, I needed to be responsible for my own success. So however much I was going to put in, I would get out of it. And it wasn't just sitting behind a desk 9 to 5 and kind of counting the hours down. I wanted something that I was building relationships. I was on my feet, running around every day. No day was the same. If I worked 4 hours a day, I was probably not going to go over. It wasn't going to go very well. If one of my mentors at the time had said, Athena, you are the least experienced agent here. You should be at the office well before anyone else gets here and well after anyone else leaves, excuse me. So I kind of brought that mentality early on to, okay, now how do I follow a top producing agent who was actually the owner of my small brokerage at the time. He still is, John Stegner. Thank you. He let me follow everything he did for the first year of my career. And this allowed me to, I'm a firm believer that unfortunately, real estate school, from my experience and anyone I've talked to, doesn't teach you much. You learn the basics.
You learn how to pass the test, and that's
Exactly.
about
So when you're let out into the wild, so to speak, I think there's a lack of footing or understanding where to go and how to spend your time and how to be intentional and what to be doing. And if you can find a mentor that you respect them, not only from a business sense, but from the way that they do business. How are they as a person? I admired so much and admire John because he believes so firmly in relationship-based business. He wants to ensure that any client that he has, whether it's someone he's helped, multiple times or a first client, they are going to be wanting to have him over for dinner months after the closing or 2 years down the line when they need someone who's amazing for HVAC, that he's going to be their first call. So when I saw this, and he's a ray of sunshine. He's one of those people you're around and you're automatically want to be better. And I think that also speaks volumes, surrounding yourself with people that bring out the light in you. And to be able to watch every call he made, every market analysis, do showings with him, open houses, it gave me the reps that I needed to understand it as much as I could. And then one of the most valuable things he said to me, which I know was in an episode I was listening to with Lindsay this morning, was the greatest thing you can do as a young agent or a very experienced agent, if you don't know something, is you say, you know what? I don't know that off the top of my head right now, but I have such great resources. Let me get back to you. Because when you're starting in real estate, it is so easy to want to pretend that you know everything and that you have an answer for everything, because you don't want to be, you don't want to look green to your client. But by spitballing an answer that you're not totally sure of, A, you're putting yourself in huge liability, but B, you're not actually serving your client. So that was honestly one of the best pieces of advice I've ever gotten. And I still use it today. If I don't know something, that's not, there's no one in the world that knows every single little thing about, the intricacies of any job. But we have resources available at our fingertips, whether it's a coach, a mentor, your managing broker, another broker in your office. You're surrounded by people that actually do want to help you if you will open your mouth and ask for it.
Yeah, I want to talk too about, one thing that I love about athletes, I think it's taught, it's built into being a professional or competitive athlete, is this idea of learning how to lose. And because of course, very few people
Yeah,
have perfect records,
I
and even
will.
just in practice, you're going to fail, you're going to, and again, I love that, because what's great about it is, if done correctly, it builds resilience. It makes you okay with not getting the result you want, because you're not always going to get that. And also, having an illness is similar, because there, like you said, there's days where you've done everything correctly and it still doesn't show up. The health doesn't show up in the way that you want it. So you have to accept that.
Yeah.
I want to talk about that. People do, they look at people who are highly successful, people on the show, competitive skiers like you've been in the past. You're now obviously a top realtor, and they just see the success, because people
Yeah.
typically aren't posting on social, hey, I had this massive failure today. But
So many falls on the face.
yeah, yeah, and let's talk about that. What when you don't land that deal that you want, or that client, or something goes wrong, that maybe you missed it, you missed something, or maybe it was sometimes things just happen to us, and other times we just drop the ball. So
Totally.
I dropped the ball this weekend on a guest for another podcast I do. Completely forgot about the thing. I've never done that before, and I
Life.
dropped the ball, and I felt really terrible about it, because that's what you should feel when you drop the ball.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I had to pick myself up, and I had to, I had to continue going, and realize, like, I'm human. I make
It
mistakes.
happens.
Everyone does. But let's talk about that. When you make an error, and athletes are so great at this, because it typically is like no big deal. How do you not get stuck in that mistake?
Yeah, so that is a huge challenge for me because I'm absolutely um I'm a planner by nature and a kind of a perfectionist from skiing, because if we, weren't listening to our coaches, it would be okay, take your skis off, do 50 burpees in your ski boots and then go put the
Oh,
air
burpees in a
on.
ski boot. Like,
Yeah,
if
not
burpees weren't, if they
fun.
weren't, terrible enough to do, put heavy ski boots on and then do that.
Yeah, so there was always, that is an extreme sense of accountability. But in day to day, when I came into real estate, I think I had scored like in the 98th percentile in terms of like planning. And I believe I had my life planned. I was like, it's this, I'm going to do this. And that really translated into my day, which translated into my actions. But I quickly got, lost my health after that.
Yeah.
And what I learned is that anytime you tell life what your plan is, it's gonna like it's a joke. Nothing ever goes to plan, unfortunately. When
Yeah.
it's whether it's a real estate transaction, whether it's something personally you're going through, life does not go to plan. But our ability to pivot is the one element that is in our hands.
Yeah.
So when we drop the ball, I'm a firm believer in saying, first of all, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
this is not acceptable.
Yeah.
I don't run my business this way, but I'm human. I would really appreciate, the opportunity to show you a better experience.
Yeah.
Taking note of that, but not it's a really difficult not to take it personally when you mess up, because you want to give your clients the absolute best. You want to be perfect for them. But
Yeah.
what I've realized, and I don't know that I would have really learned this about myself or how to handle it if I had not gotten sick, was that there are going to be so many instances throughout our lives in a multitude of ways where we do not, meet, whether it's something that people even notice or they don't notice.
Right.
There are always going to be things that we can do better. And if we focus on how we failed, how we didn't succeed at that, that is where our energy is going.
Yeah.
And your client is going to feel it. So instead, I like to think of like anytime I'm in a funk or I do, I mess up, I like to just take a deep breath and remind myself of the word pivot. Every year, I try and pick a word that I'm going to focus on.
Yeah.
And the art of the pivot, I think, is something that we do not focus on ever. But if we can take a negative experience with a client, whether it's losing out on a home or, having to terminate based on a really bad inspection on their dream home, I like to say, okay, I'm going to take a moment. I'm going to pivot my head so that I can then provide valuable insight about a new plan forward.
Yeah.
Because life isn't not an adventure unless there's a U-turn or two or 10. So there's lots of U-turns in real estate. And I think if you can guide your clients by letting them know that when everything is supposed to come together, when it's like visualizing that trick, when you have gotten when everything is lined up as it should be, you will get into the property you're supposed to be in. And
Yeah.
after 10 years, I firmly believe that. And I don't think it's woo woo. I think it's, if something it does not work out and with your client with real estate, it's because something else is out there. A better home is there for your client. So instead of seeing this as a negative dark cloud, we try and reframe it into an opportunity. And that's what I try and do with mistakes, because mistakes give us the opportunity to learn, to grow, to do better next time. And I think if you take accountability, be transparent about that, whether it's your fault or no fault of yours, but still something that's greatly affecting your client,
Yeah.
put your take accountability and let them know how that is going to change the way that you operate as a team together, because that is your team. Your clients are your team.
Yeah.
And you want to make sure that as the leader, you have a clear approach, plan, system structure for them to move forward, because it helps us to not stay and sit in the negative.
Yeah.
And that's a hard thing not to do in anything you're going through in life, is sit in the negative.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I find that when it comes to interpersonal relationships,
Yeah.
when we let someone down, whether it's our fault or not, they feel let down. Really, most of the time, again, this isn't, there are exceptions to this, but I would say 99% of my experiences have been when I've made a mistake. People just want me to apologize,
Yeah.
take ownership of it, have some empathy for how that affected them, and then also say, and here's what I'm doing now to correct it, or here's what I'm doing to move forward. But again, it's funny because I've found that people typically are really accepting of that, no matter what the mistake is. If as long like I made the mistake, I didn't show up for a podcast, which is like the very thing I have to do every time, and I didn't. And I wish I had, but
You're
I was
human.
cooking. I literally
You're
went straight to.
human.
I was funny. I literally I wasn't even like sitting around. I was doing meal prep. I was cooking for 3 hours, and
Yeah,
it just slipped my mind. Anyway,
it
so
happens.
as it happens, and at first I didn't want to face the person. I was so embarrassed. I was ashamed. I said, and then I went, okay, I'm human. We all make mistakes. And I said, what do I need to do right now? And it's like, I need to apologize, and I need to say, you pick the time and the day next time, and I'll be there because I owe that to you. And if you don't want to do it anymore because of this, I understand that too. I apologize. I don't want to waste your. I'm sorry for
Yeah,
wasting
I
your time.
value your time and
Value your time.
yeah,
And he was no problem. Let's get it rescheduled. And
I love
that's
that.
how most people respond to things. But it is funny. There are lots of times, lots of people I've met where saying I'm sorry is a hard thing. They just either can't do it or they won't do it. And I have
A lot
found
of pride.
yeah, yeah. Well,
Not in the right way.
what do they say? Pride goeth before the fall, or something
Yeah,
like that.
exactly.
Yeah, and too. I wanted to talk about gratitude because
Yeah.
you are somebody that I suspect has an intentional gratitude process program that
How did
you
you
run.
know?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I can tell, and I think our audience can tell that you seem to be a very grateful person, despite having some pretty serious challenges.
yeah,
Um, and let's talk about that. How do you practice gratitude?
absolutely. So I'm a firm believer in when I lost my health, that um sense of planning, my everything that I had ever learned and cultivated in my life went out the window. And of course, with that came with a period of grieving. Like
Sure.
I was not just, oh, I got Lyme disease, which turned into every autoimmune disease, but I'm still grateful. Like, I definitely believe that there is a cycle of, like you have to mourn, you have to let yourself feel how much that sucks, but you can't let yourself get stuck there.
Yeah.
And I believe that one of the most critical things that I've learned over the last 9 years of having health challenges is having my toolkit for what is going to keep me in the right headspace. What are my go-tos for when I'm really not in a good headspace or I'm having a really hard time physically? Stress, for instance, makes my body flare up
Yeah.
horrifically.
Yeah.
And that's something we deal with every day. So I have to be very intentional about what I'm feeding myself, so to speak.
Yeah.
And that includes, and I have a huge amount of what they call brain fog. Like, I don't know if you've ever had a big meal and you just
Sure.
can't think and you're like exhausted.
Yep.
Well, unfortunately, Lyme disease attacks the brain and it causes swelling. And
Mm,
I live in a state of brain fog. So for me, having routines and having structure is absolutely pivotal for me.
yeah.
So I've created like a toolkit of course, every night. I actually do gratitudes twice a day. So usually you hear once a day, but I've got very firm morning and nighttime routines that don't take a huge amount of time. Like, anyone can implement routine into their life that is going to exponentially change their lives. And for me, this looks like first journaling out anything negative that happened during the day that I just need to get out. I think that it's really important to come face to face with your challenges, with your fears, with your mistakes. So anything that you need to get out, get it out on paper.
Yeah.
But then take take everything negative that just happened and then write at least 5 gratitudes. Write 5 things every day that you're grateful for that are not the same as the day before. Don't write the same thing
Yeah.
5 things every day. We have so much to be grateful for. Like I said, I am the luckiest sick person in the universe. I have incredible access to medicine. I have access to medicine. I have health insurance. They're useless, but I still have it. I have a supportive family, a supportive real estate team, and I have opportunities like this where I can connect with others that are going through struggles. To
Yeah.
me, that is something that I am grateful for every single day, but there are 100 million other things that I'm grateful for. So
Sure.
making sure that I'm focusing on the good and not focusing on the fact that my hands feel like they're in a fire because of the nerve pain. Next, I really, really, I try every night. I always say I've become a very big night owl due to Lyme disease. It's a nocturnal bug, which is very
Oh,
strange. My entire life I was up at 5 a.m. to go to the gym before the mountain, and now I usually am like I can't sleep until 4 a.m. So what do I do at this time? But I read. I take something, and usually it's, something for self-improvement. Like I'm reading Atomic Habits right now, and I
yeah.
take that into every day. It's how can I be 1% better, and how can I take um so much, well, our access to information right now is so incredible.
We are
So
so lucky to be living right now just
mind blowing.
because I grew up, it's funny, I grew up pre-internet and the internet didn't even really become a thing. Browsers like around 94 or so, and that's when I started college and you sort of had access, but even then it wasn't,
You're
we
probably
didn't
going to
really
the
have.
library.
Yeah, right. You were still heading to the library, you were still
Yeah.
looking at encyclopedias, and I used to fantasize about just getting answers to things. And now we are so lucky, and especially with things like
Oh
ChatGPT,
my
it's not
gosh.
always accurate, but it's we can literally ask questions, and
Yeah,
it's like we have that oracle at Delphi that, we would.
exactly.
Yeah, so you're right. So there's so much to learn.
Yeah, like how are you, and one of my coaches says, how are you, every day is an opportunity that you might meet the person that changes your life. And how do you want to show up? How does the person that you want to be to meet that person, how do they present themselves and show up every day? So what do you need to do mentally, physically to get yourself into the headspace where you feel confident that if you met the person, the developer that was going to hire you to sell for the rest of your life with them, that could happen any day.
Yeah.
So what are you doing?
And you don't get to pick the day.
No, you don't. It could be your worst day ever. But that's why it's so important to make sure that we have these practices in our lives. And for me, like you said, I think it's amazing to sit in the car and be really intentional with your thoughts, and kind of use that as a time for introspection. For me, I know that my car time is my time to catch up on podcasts,
Sure.
on master classes,
Yeah.
on audiobooks. Like we spend so much time in our cars, but this
Yeah.
is actually a gift because
Yeah.
we
It's a learning machine.
it's literally like you are just sitting in your car and you have the opportunity to learn just about anything you could ever dream of from the best of the best.
Almost for
Use that
free
time.
as
Yeah,
well.
literally, like, and if you're not in a good mood and you're headed to a big meeting, maybe that looks like pumping some rock and roll and just
Yeah,
getting your game face on.
yeah,
Maybe it's like listening to Ed Milet talk about something really positive, or what is that tool for you that's going to get you in a headspace? Because it's crazy if you pay attention to how quickly that pivot can happen from woe is me, like I do not feel grateful for anything, I just want to go to bed, to okay, I can do this. And that is something to be grateful for, is your routines, the way that you're feeding yourself, the way that you're maybe you have a go-to person, whether it's your spouse or a business partner, a mentor, and you say, I'm really struggling through this, like can you help, you know talk it out with me. At least it doesn't
yeah,
have to be a solution, but again, this is all your toolkit that we all need to be building. And then the last thing, I love doing affirmations in the present tense, which is really goes along with writing out what my perfect client is. But every night, just writing out like, I am healthy, I am healing, I am strong, I am successful, I am powerful. Like you have to, our brains are so incredible in the way that they have the ability to relearn. Muscle memory is what we call it in skiing, but for muscles. But your brain has neuroplasticity, meaning if you get yourself into a state, like for at nighttime, I love to do binaural beats,
Yeah.
basically different
Yeah.
frequencies. Yeah, because it puts your brain in a state where it is able to become more like your neural pathways will be opened.
Yeah.
So how am I feeding my brain positive messages? How am I rewiring my limiting beliefs that we all have? Like we all have so much built up, whether it's trauma from childhood or
Sure.
injury or whatever it may be, that we might not even realize is there. And I'm really grateful to live in a generation and a time where we talk about this kind of thing. We talk about, I go to therapy, EMDR every week. And I swear this woman has completely changed the way that I am able to approach healing.
Well, and
Because,
I want to talk about EMDR for a second. So
yeah,
what that is eye movement desensitization response.
yeah.
Yeah, something.
I'm like, I don't know if I've ever met anyone that knew that off the spot. That
Yeah.
was impressive.
So here, and I'm going to overly simplify it, and I'm going to make it. And I don't
Simple
know.
is good.
I've never done it myself, but I know essentially what its attempt is to do, and it works really well with trauma. It
Yeah.
works really well with PTSD, things like that. And here's why. And it really ties into what you're talking about. And this doesn't sound real estate related for our listeners, but it
But it
can be.
is, yes.
Yeah, it is, because you were saying about these neural pathways, they become thick sort of highways in our brain, and based on repetition, and they just become our go-tos. Our brains, we're conditioned to respond in certain ways. We're
Yeah.
behaviorists. This is, we just do things
Our
over and
nervous
over again.
system
Yeah,
responds a
and
certain
we
way.
do things automatically, and what happens is the things we learned when we were younger, maybe some things weren't so helpful, but we still learn them, and they became, stuck. We get stuck in them, and what eye movement desensitization, I believe, does is
Yeah.
it helps break those neural pathways
Yeah.
by literally moving eyeballs around and doing some things, but basically just saying, let's scratch the record that's running so it can't really play the same, and then we're going to build some new pathways. We're going to build some new records that are more intentional. And boy, I
Incredible.
it's a legitimate therapeutic technique. It's been, it's one of those things that doesn't sound like it should work, but it does.
It's very,
I would,
I don't understand still. I'm like,
I,
how did that just unlock this that
yeah.
allowed me to process whatever limiting belief that was so that we could create something new from it?
Well,
It blows my mind.
I will tell everyone else too. If you are looking to develop more skills around being able to manage your emotional state, the best that I've ever found, I've been studying this for now 4 or 5 years, is dialectic behavior therapy, DBT.
Ooh,
Yeah. So everyone out there, if you're
I'm
struggling
gonna
with
check that out.
emotional regulation, distress tolerance,
Yeah,
interpersonal effectiveness, things like that, this is what it's for. It is all skills based. It teaches you how to do
I'm
things.
gonna check this out right
Oh,
away.
you're gonna love it. You are gonna love it.
Well, especially in this industry, you look at, I was looking at stats yesterday in Denver Metro, just for instance, 33 or 36% of agents did not renew their licenses in 2025. And I think we all know why. It has been a very difficult couple of years. People are burnt out. We are burnt out. I think, we keep looking for last year, we were hoping for a new year and everything was going to get better. And then nothing changed. And this year it's like, okay, we don't really know what's going to come. There might be a couple small decreases with the Fed. It seems like
Maybe.
buyers are moving. Maybe.
And by the
Like,
way, just because that happens doesn't mean rates will change. In
no,
fact, the last
not at
2 rate
all. They
cuts,
might go
it's
up.
yeah, exactly. The last
They're
two
usually
rate cuts,
inversely.
it didn't affect rates at all, sadly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
usually they're inversely correlated. So it's like, well, okay. So we really like using these difficult times in business, in life, to grow our skill set of resiliency, of grit, of how we approach life. Like now is the time. And I think oftentimes when you're doing things like, taking an hour a week to do therapy or hour and a half, we think of oftentimes it's like, well, I should be working during that time. But what we don't realize, and I felt the same way, and I lived by I lived and died by my schedule of no, I don't do that kind of thing. Like this is my work day. But what I didn't realize is that by doing those activities, by making sure that you're getting your workout in, by making sure that you're going to therapy or whatever it is for you that's helped cultivating the best parts of you and helping you grow as a human, that is what is going to allow you to overflow into other people's lives, to show up as your best self, to have less bad days, because you're learning the skills needed to be a successful human. And we're all human at the end of the day, whether you're looking at your idols on $1 million listing or something. I don't know whose idols they are, but whatever it is, like we look at these people and you think, okay, they must work 12 hours a day with absolutely no breaks. And you can't have self-care in there, but it's what you realize when you start implementing, these must do activities from your toolkit of, okay, I know that if I don't work out a certain number of days a week, that I am not going to be as effective mentally, emotionally, and I'm not going to, I'll probably be a little bit more irritable. So I know that if I'm not doing those things, that I'm not going to be the best broker I can be for my clients. So being intentional with our time and recognizing that whatever self-care, and I think self-care kind of has gotten this connotation with it of like going to the spa,
Being
getting,
luxurious,
yeah, and
luxury, yeah,
maybe
luxurious.
every once in a while you're celebrating a big win, and you should go celebrate and go to the Four Seasons spa or something. But no, we're talking about the basics every day, every week that need to become just as non-negotiable as the green time blocked into your calendar for real estate, because that's sharpening your brain.
Yeah, well, look, physical exercise, unfortunately, is a non negotiable if we want to have the energy to do extraordinary things. Even just to do normal
Big
things, you
part.
need it. And you know what I've learned too? And I'm curious to get your thoughts. Athletes always know this
Mhm.
that you don't have to like something, you
Oh,
just have to do it.
you just have to show up.
You just yeah,
Show
in
up and
fact,
get
I
through it.
don't there's a lot of things I don't like to do. If I can just get myself to do them, then it doesn't like I kept waiting for me to like love doing pull-ups or actually I don't mind doing pull-ups, but doing like
Burpees.
burpees, yeah,
I
perfect.
hate burpees.
I will never enjoy doing burpees,
Yeah.
but it's a really good idea to do a burpee.
Yeah.
It's a really good idea. The data is in. It's so I can say, well, I don't like to do that. And then well, okay, good. That's
Yeah.
fine. I don't like to pay my taxes. I don't like to do a lot of things in life. But
Adulting's hard.
right, but and it's hard and it hurts and it's painful and all of that is true. And I just still have to. I still get to do it. And
Yeah.
if I just do it, I'll feel proud. In fact, I'll
Feels
probably
so
even
much
be.
better.
I'll be more proud of myself for doing the thing I don't want to do
Yeah.
than the thing I do want to do. Right. So it's funny. I actually get a bigger benefit
Oh,
from
big
doing the
time.
thing that I dislike the most, but that is really super healthy for me. So I used to say to myself, like, I really should like start doing cardio because I was doing weights and I
Yeah.
still do weights. And I kept saying, I really should. I kept waiting for that motivation to kick in. It's like, oh, that's not how it works.
Yeah.
Like, I just have to do
No,
it. I just have to do it. And then I'm not going to like it probably. Okay, fine. But it's a really
but
good
we can
idea.
get through it.
And just do it. And then I will be like, oh my God, DJ, you did something you didn't even want to do.
Yeah.
So
Honestly, that's how I live every day. I mean,
yeah.
I used to spring out of bed in the morning. Now getting out of bed is literally the most painful, difficult experience ever. So I have like, okay, I'm gonna get my podcast on that's gonna motivate me to like drag myself out of bed. And then I'm gonna take a shower and it's gonna be so hard because I'm exhausted. But it's like celebrating those small victories. And then when you start when you continue showing up for yourself when you don't want to, it creates a sense of self like accomplishment,
Yeah.
and you can feel proud of yourself for saying, I did not, I didn't think I was capable of showing up today. I didn't think that, you know i I could have let a million things get in the way of that workout. But when you're finished doing it, not only do you have that sense of accomplishment, but you're building again those resiliency. You're building a neural pathway that shows you can do hard things.
Yeah.
You can accomplish anything you want, but it's not fun. So don't anyone that thinks that all of this is sunshine and rainbows. It's like no, a good majority of being an adult is difficult, and but if you recognize how you feel before and after you do something, my first mentor always said the heavy light test. If you, and I think this goes well with real estate, is there are so many avenues to success. And if you try and do everything, it's A, not going to be authentic to you, but B, you're not going to have fun. And if you're not finding the activities in your life that make you feel lighter when you're done, they make you feel heavier, then you need to get rid of the heavy. And it's a really easy way to determine, where you should focus your energy, especially like in real estate. If you're someone that hates making cold calls and you feel heavy and down afterward, you probably should not put that on, that probably shouldn't be your focus of your day.
And the good news is there's a million other avenues.
Exactly.
Yeah, you don't, there are some sales jobs where you have to make cold calls,
Yeah.
and that's a tough position to be in. And maybe you should find another job if you hate it that much.
Mhm.
But the good news about real estate is you don't want to do cold calls. Great. There's 7 other things you can try that you might enjoy.
And if you're authentic to it, I really believe that's where you find success. And the easiest way for me in life to understand, whether it's spending time with certain people, doing certain activities, do I feel lighter or do I feel heavier? And you
Yeah,
can apply that to anything in life.
I love
And
that.
it will really help guide you in making decisions on where your time should be spent, because it'll help you show up as your most authentic light self.
I love that. I've never heard of that heavy light test. I'm going to start applying that to my
John
own life.
Stegner. It's one of the best things I ever heard.
And I want to talk. I want to wrap up with one thing because you have given
Yeah.
us so much of your time. I want to wrap up in being coached.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the importance. You were a professional athlete. Every professional athlete I've ever met has a coach. Now you're a real estate agent. You're a top real estate agent. Do you still have a coach?
Oh yeah, I have two at the moment. Usually I have two, a business coach and a real estate coach. And that doesn't even get into like the therapy coaching or whatever.
Sure.
But no, I'm a firm believer that no matter what industry, for the most part in life, there should be someone looking from a bird's eye view over your business and helping you understand where your blind spots are, helping you understand where your time is going and what your natural talents are and how to cultivate them, but also keeping you accountable. I've been with a coaching program. Was with a coaching program for 6 years, and they helped create basically a grid of activities that I needed to get done every week. And, it would be like 5 face-to-face meals, 10 faced it like Zooms or coffee breaks, a bunch of phone calls, open houses, and handwritten notes, newsletter. And then I started putting in like gym. I started putting in my non-negotiables for health as well. But if I would turn this in at the end of the week and there were blank spots, it meant that I was donating $10 to charity per blank that I did not fill in that week. So it created accountability. But they also, we don't know what we don't know. And especially as a former athlete, I've always had that like get it done yourself mentality. And what coaching has taught me is that we are not meant to do everything ourselves. We're meant to find what our purpose is, what we're really good at, hone those skills, see where we can improve our other skills that, are things that we need to do in order to be successful, but not necessarily our green time. And then also recognizing what your weaknesses are and learning how to delegate and learning how to work with a team, because we really don't understand our blind spots when we're running from one thing to the next thing to the
Sure.
next thing. And you don't have that time to be really reflecting and intentional. So for me, coaching is by far the most valuable gift you can give yourself. It's expensive, yes. Will it pay for itself tenfold? Absolutely. If you find, but also recognizing that there are so many different types of coaching. Um, like I guess just different types of coaching, and you need to really do your research, go to conferences, talk to different coaches, on Zooms, really interview them as well to find who you feel you align with, from not only a real estate standpoint but from how they live their lives, because you want to be learning from someone who you admire in all aspects of life, not someone who's selling 300 homes a year but is divorced because they were never home, lost custody of their kids, sleeps under the desk. Like, that is not the person probably that you want to be learning from, unless that's how you want to end up.
Sure.
So understanding that we all need accountability, and we all need someone that's not afraid to give it to us straight. And that's what coaches are there for.
Yeah, I love it. Well, I think that is a perfect place for us to wrap up this episode.
I could
Athena,
talk to you forever, so thank
I would
you.
love to continue talking with you, and I'm definitely going to have you back
I would love
because you have a lot of wisdom and you've given a
it.
lot of your own personal processes to our audience. I hope our audience can take some of those and
Me
apply
too.
them to their own life. This is we're not in practice. This is the real world, and we get to
Yeah.
make decisions, and we get to architect our own life, but it requires some intentionality, and it's time to slow
Beautiful.
down. I suspect you probably don't spend a ton of time scrolling on social media. Maybe you do, but we all have ways in which
Yeah.
probably should spend our time more effectively. I certainly fall into, I waste time in lots of ways,
Oh, we
and
all do.
we all do. But this is where coaching comes in, and this is
Yeah.
where having other people in our life, we don't have to do it all ourselves. And in fact, we can't. And so, this idea of having a community, you've got a community of coaches. You talked about you have health coaches, you have business coaches, you have, I bet you have coaches for every
I
part.
call my team my coaches too, because
Me
they
too.
call
Yeah.
me out also. I love it.
I I always tell people this, that I have somebody that wakes me up every morning at 6 a.m. She
Yeah.
calls me, and it sounds I don't know how it
No,
sounds to
I've
people,
been there.
but yeah,
Yeah.
well, and the reason I do it is it's not easy for me to do that, and I've become better at it, but
Yeah.
I know I won't let somebody else down. I'll let myself down
Yep.
easily, but I
Hmm.
won't let somebody else down. So now I wake up 5 minutes before she calls me, and I message her, and
I'm
that makes me
awake.
feel, yeah, it just makes me
Yeah.
feel proud. Now
It's a
I'm still
win.
gonna, yeah, but again, it's systems. Like, you have systems, but you need other people to help you with your systems sometimes,
Yeah.
and there's no shame in that. I used to be kind of embarrassed, like, I have up 48 and I still have to have
Oh,
somebody wake me up, but it works.
no. I used to
Yeah,
have someone have to come to my house and physically wake me up because my body just wanted to sleep
yeah,
24 hours a day. I would
yeah,
have people come wake me up in the morning at my house. And I'm
yeah.
like, you
That's
just
humbling.
got to do what you got to do sometimes.
Yeah, and this idea too is this: we can rely upon others,
Yeah.
and some people will let us down, and some people won't be there for the entire journey of our lives,
Mm.
but some people will, and some people will come and go. But boy, isn't it great
Oh,
that you can allow yourself to fall apart a little bit here and there, and let other people prop you up so you can fall apart.
oh my
It's
gosh, it's beautiful. I mean,
Yeah,
honestly, that really is the heart of authenticity and being vulnerable. And we're in an industry that's very one person dominant, and if we can build community, it's the greatest gift we can give ourselves.
love it. Well,
Mm.
Athena Brownson is our guest today.
Thank
I want everybody to follow her on Instagram, Athena Brownson Realtor. We will have a link to that. It's Brownson, Brownson. So, Athena, thank you so much. You are an inspiration
you.
to all of us, and
Mm.
you are a great reminder to us about, obviously, get to work, but be intentional and take care of yourself and build in hard things to do, because that's
You
how
can
we
do
get
it.
to that next level, and pivot. pivot. That's, it's funny. I'll give you one quick pivot story as
Yeah.
I'm exiting. This just happened to me a couple weeks ago. I woke up and I was feeling really blue. It just happened.
Yeah.
I couldn't even tell you why,
Mm-mm.
but it was there. It just happened. And I was like really a little bit depressed and sad. And and it was funny as I looked out at my windows in my condo and I saw the sun shining and I go, that's something to be grateful for. But then I thought, but is that enough for me to like overcome this blue? Because I wanted to honor the
Yeah.
fact that I wasn't feeling well, but I also wanted to pivot. And so I said, okay, well, what would I need to think in order to feel differently right now? And I said, well, there's a lot of people that didn't wake up today. There's a lot of people that yesterday was their last day on this earth. I got another day. Like
Boom.
the universe, God, whoever, somebody gave me
Yeah.
another day. And at the very least, that's an opportunity. And I go, well, that's pretty cool. And so I just,
That is a
sometimes,
beautiful pivot. Oh my
yeah, and
God.
sometimes that's all it needs to be, right?
Yeah.
It's like, hey, everything in my life is falling apart, but I'm still here for in this moment.
I'm still
Everything's,
fighting.
I'm
Yeah.
I'm still fighting. Yeah, and so sometimes I just love gratitude is the fastest way I know to pivot. So
Agreed.
yeah,
Completely. We
well,
align on many things, my friend.
well, we are fast friends, and I
Indeed.
appreciate you being on the show. Kindred spirits for sure.
Indeed.
And I appreciate you. And look, because of this podcast, you and I got to meet. You get to talk to my
Right?
audience. The things happen
So
when you.
grateful.
So I am so grateful for you as well.
Yeah.
And I
No,
want
you made
everybody to
my
follow.
day.
And also, too, you live in an area where people have second homes, vacation homes. So if anyone out there has clients that are into the outdoors and go to Denver and all of the surrounding areas, Athena would love to connect with you because she, of course, is a top realtor. She's a luxury realtor as well. So she can help those clients, any client that you have that's moving to Denver or even maybe from Denver, reach out to her. She's the kind of agent you certainly would want to introduce to your clients because, of course,
Watch
she's
your
proven that
back.
on this episode. She's proven just
Yeah.
what her dedication is, and she's a fighter. And fighters always to end up, making it happen. So, on behalf of our audience, Athena, thank you for opening your heart. Thank you for sharing. And on behalf of Athena and myself, thank you to the audience. We love you, even though we can't see you or speak to you right now, but we appreciate you. And please leave us a review. Let us know what you think of the show. Tell a friend about this episode. Maybe somebody who's going through a hard
Share.
time. This is the episode to send them because they might just get a little bit of perspective and maybe it'll give them the courage to pivot. So send them a link to this episode and we will see everybody on the next one. Thank you, Athena.
Thank you so much for having me.